What's up everyone, it's ENDYMION, and lately there's been some industry legends pushing back against the way things are being made these days. Some are sick and tired of the woke mind virus outright, while others are just tired of creators injecting themselves and their politics into characters that they never even created in the first place. There's a lot of weird stuff to go over today, from Gundam's creator, the guy who made God of War, and even a transgender Joker movie. Yeah, it's weird, so let's get started. To begin, let's look at this article from Bounding Into Comics titled, Mobile Suit Gundam creator slams Disney's recent output as disappointing and boring, says full switch to digital animation has left company creatively sterile. This story started to make waves when Yoshiyuki Tomino, who's a pioneer of the mecha genre, just outright pulled his nuts out and let them hang for all to see when he said that Disney and companies like them are creatively bankrupt these days. He explains in this interview that the rejection of hand-drawn animations has led to an industry that focuses far too much on convenient alternatives, and that the soul of creation, that is art, is being stifled because of it. It's not just Disney, of course, it's really pretty much most things being made these days as well. And he's right, you can't look at any platform, game, or show coming out that hasn't in some way forgotten the old ways of what made art, well, art really. This all started when Yoshiyuki was interviewed by the Japanese news outlet Toyo Kazai Online, and this is a man who's lived and breathed the art form, and his words I think are more important than ever. And not only does he just call Disney out, but he also issues a warning to fans of manga and anime too, saying that from what he sees, he genuinely believes that the state of Japanese media could very well be heading down the same path as companies like Disney. And that honestly is what made me want to create this video to begin with. Because for many, we can all likely agree that amidst this miasma of nonsense, the media created by the Japanese has been a safe haven of good stories and original ideas, mostly anyway. And the thought of the last safe bastion being infested with ESG and politics is a nightmare for someone like me. Because I play and consume Japanese content because it's the only form of entertainment these days anyway that doesn't push agendas down my throat constantly, or treats me like a toddler and talks to me about why I should be ashamed for my skin color or gender. For example, I recently finished Attack on Titan. Its ending left me in a pit of moral disdain, but I loved the show. And the entire time I watched, I had a smile on my face because sure, the show was political, especially in the later half of the series, but it was political within the confines of the show's universe. It wasn't telling me to vote a certain way, or if I didn't believe a firm stance, I was a bad person. Attack on Titan, for me anyway, is the gold standard for entertainment, and proves that you can be political in your storytelling without alienating your audience. If this show had the hands of Western writers on it, the show would suffer immeasurably. As Yoshiyuki puts it, and I quote, "The anime industry is certainly in a period of prosperity, however, it is unclear whether this situation will continue in the future. The excitement may continue for another 5 or 6 years, but that will be it, and it will fade away. The same is true for novels and movies, but there are always ups and downs that occur with the changing times. Works are meant to be enjoyed by people with hearts, so if the world environment changes, the face of culture will change, and people's hearts will also change. So if we reach the peak now, we will reach a dead end from now on. Animes themselves will not disappear, but it is difficult to say whether there will ever be a better work than what we have now. After the switch from hand-drawn animation to digital, Disney's works were all disappointing, for example. Maybe that kind of animation will continue. However, the amazing ability of humans is that they have the ability to discern when something is different. I trust that feeling. I have thought in the past about how to avoid losing profits from those who have created such a clever system, to keep users in a tight circle and prevent them from getting away with it. The only thing I could come up with was to charge for the internet signal itself. I know that's not much more than science fiction. Same thing with the boring work produced by Disney's digital production system today. People who create must have a crazy side, a sense of spirituality, earthiness, indiness," end quote. Yoshiyuki echoes the ongoing feeling many fans have been shouting from the rooftops for years now, that the entertainment industries of today, whether it's movies, games, or manga, have and will eventually be infected with the corporate viruses that currently grip us. He's worried that companies will lose the human element, and that eventually what led to golden eras of entertainment may never happen again. And with the rise of AI, for example, this could lead to a future where the things that get made can never truly be new ever again. but will only be a copy of a copy while also being remixed by including elements of what's come before. And he's right, and it's a big reason why it's becoming increasingly more difficult to find things to enjoy that don't pander or ruin the things that we all love these days. Of course, there's still rays of hope. I mean, Miyazaki's The Boy and the Heron won the box office recently, and it's a film that echoes that old school traditional way of making entertainment. Then you have Godzilla Minus One, which has torn through the box office and proven Hollywood wrong. And of course, games like Elden Ring from last year blew up and pissed off many Western devs for showing how inept and close-minded their games were in comparison. But the fear is that this same mind virus has all but rewritten the landscape of Western media and will eventually reach upon Eastern shores. And then the question remains, what do we do then? We're already living in a time where things like historical accuracy mean next to nothing when it comes to telling stories. Look at how Netflix is set to make the story of Hannibal, a Carthaginian military icon, into a story starring Denzel Washington of all people. Not only is that historically inaccurate, it's just downright disrespectful to the legacy of that culture. And other creators within the industry, such as gaming, have also spoken out over the injection of politics into legacy characters such as Kratos. Recently, David Jaffe, the creator of God of War, spoke out about how he finds Sony Santa Monica's depiction of Kratos, specifically in Ragnarok, to not adhere to what he originally envisioned for the character. As The Gamer puts it, God of War creator David Jaffe has expressed his unhappiness with the current direction of the God of War series, and Kratos in particular, as he thinks the feelings and personal lives of the developers at Santa Monica have negatively impacted the character. Jaffe's argument is that Kratos was always supposed to be looked at in a similar vein to someone like James Bond or Spider-Man. And what he means by that is that those characters, regardless of their stories, are always to some capacity reverted back to their malleable yet distinguishable selves. No matter what happens to Spider-Man, at the end of the day, Peter Parker is a funny, sarcastic nerd with a sense of justice. James Bond will always be a badass secret agent who sleeps with sexy women and drinks the most expensive drinks while looking cool doing it. What Jaffe explains here echoes what Yoshiyuki said about the state of media and how he's worried about Japan becoming like the West. Jaffe thinks making Kratos into a father figure and openly having him reject his original, much more edgy self is not how Jaffe created the character to be. Kratos was meant to be a mixture of Wolverine meets Conan, a badass who does the impossible and has no remorse. But once Jaffe left Santa Monica, of course the IP and the character of Kratos fell into more progressive hands. And this then turned Kratos from edgy slayer who beds women for the hell of it to becoming this softer and more solemn character. And I would wager every moment, for me anyway, where I enjoyed these newer God of War games was when Kratos embraced his original self over his new ways. For example, when Kratos goes to get his Blades of Chaos in the 2018 game, that to me was the best moment in the game, because it felt like Kratos was running away from who he really was, and once he goes and gains his iconic weapons back, it was like, finally, this is the Kratos I know. At the same time, while I understand where Jaffe is coming from, I also understand that in today's landscape, that certain things are not socially acceptable. It's why whenever I hear someone say they should remake the original God of War games, I say with confidence that you do not want that to happen, because a modern remake of God of War will undoubtedly remove all the edginess and politically incorrect humor or moments out of the game. You can also say goodbye to your woman-smashing minigame the series was known for, and what you'll be left with is a remake that sands off all the sharp edges. And if you ask me at that point, why even bother remaking it, if all you're going to do is remove everything that made the game special when it released? This is the problem with today's way of thinking. Everything is funneled through consulting firms and activist group mindsets, meaning many games or movies that come out don't say or do anything unique anymore. They all have this unified vision, a collective voice carefully constructed in order to not step on toes while ensuring they hit all the usual checkboxes. Entertainment is no longer how Mobile Suit Gundam's creator Yoshiyuki would put it. Instead, the edge, the indiness, and the collective fire of what leads to lightning in the bottle or industry-sweeping changes are instead replaced by safe bets and tried-and-true concepts. A game like the original God of War could never exist in today's media, not just from a gameplay standpoint, but thematically it couldn't either. I would argue what Jaffe complains about when it comes to God of War has infected other legacy characters. Insomniac's Spider-Man is poised to have Miles Morales take over the leading role, even though his game sold less than half of what Peter's original game did. And Peter, by the end of 2, is a deliberately character-assassinated version of who he was in the 2018 game, and it sucks because of that. I thought Peter's Spider-Man in the original 2018 game to be borderline definitive. I would even argue that Insomniac's first Spider-Man game to be the greatest Spider-Man piece of media outside of things like the first 2 Raimi films, because it understood Spider-Man, and in a lot of ways it adhered to what David Jaffe said when it came to someone like Kratos. It put Peter through a journey, and by the end of it, while he had changed, he still adhered to the core principles of what made him Spider-Man. By the end of Spider-Man 2, he's treated like an afterthought, and it shows with the community at large agreeing that Spider-Man 2 is nowhere near as good as the original. Yoshiyuki and Jaffe's concerns, of course, are falling on the deaf ears of game journalists like Tessa Core, who wrote that article about God of War for TheGamer.com, because they know if they agree with Jaffe, their so-called journalist friends will blacklist and destroy them for not agreeing with the hive mind. And it's extra ridiculous when Tessa Core has the gall to say that the creator of God of War and the character of Kratos is wrong in his opinion about something that he created. Tessa says in her article that the whole thing is ridiculous because where does he think stories come from? Throughout history, in every artistic medium, artists have drawn from their own experiences and the experiences of others to tell stories that make work. I would go as far as to say it's ludicrous that he thinks artists shouldn't express themselves through their work. What on earth do we have art for then? But I think she's missing the point of what Jaffe is saying or what Yoshiyuki has been treading in the future. It's not that you can't evolve characters or ideas, but that the politics and mentalities of the developers who make these things are undoubtedly being injected into these stories for all the wrong reasons. And I would argue that Ragnarok's story was not good. In fact, it was way too safe and felt less like a sequel and more like an expansion. Not enough was explored with the Nordic mythology angle, and the way it's all concluded, it felt rushed and, like I said, extremely safe. I also think God of War Ragnarok's level design was criticized by certain circles, including David Jaffe himself, because it was too handholdy and you could feel the dev's hands on your shoulders constantly as you played. So it's really no wonder that Ragnarok lost almost across the board to Elden Ring when it released, because Elden Ring was just objectively better in every way, but I digress. I would argue the injection of developers infusing their politics into stories has been nothing short of disastrous across the board. The Last of Us Part 2 is a 30-hour-long character assassination that shits on the legacy of Joel, while simultaneously ruining the themes and characters they spent so long building up. I don't need to explain to you that Disney has ruined practically all of their brands in the past 10 years, and cash cows like the MCU have been driven into the dirt due to apathy in politics too. We're living in a time where everything must adhere to guidelines, agendas, and exist within the confines of what's socially acceptable, while ensuring that diversity takes center stage for no other reason than because it has to. It's why characters like Saga Anderson in Alan Wake 2 suddenly out of nowhere becomes a black woman, when she was originally a Nordic blonde-haired woman instead. These decisions are not made for creative reasons, they are done to check boxes and nothing more. And to end this video, I want to present to you the most on-brand example of identity politics using things to push agendas. There's a film called The People's Joker that is somehow coming to theaters. It stars a transgender woman named Vera Drew who plays the Joker, and she is also directing the film. Let me read you the synopsis for this film, which states, The People's Joker stars Drew as Joker the Harlequin, a woefully unfunny clown in the making who tries desperately to make a name for themselves as part of Gotham City's only comedy club. Battling an addiction to an inhalant called Smilex and constantly questioning their identity, talent, and relationships, they instead decide to bring together fellow misfits and miscreants to create an illegal anti-comedy troupe in Gotham City, where comedy itself has been outlawed. Their actions lead them on a collision course with the Dark Knight, setting up another clash between the iconic hero and villain rival, only with a much different dynamic. The film started as a do-it-yourself project, and then it was created to push concepts like queer and transgender identities within film and TV. But like anything else being made these days, The People's Joker perfectly encapsulates what I've been saying for a year now, which is that the only reason this film has any attention on it is simply because it's using something recognizable to the masses in order to push an agenda. If this exact same film was made, but it was not the Joker, but simply a clown, and not Gotham, but just a city, nobody would care. The existence of The People's Joker is just like the many other franchises that have been hijacked by activists in order to push messages. In fact, the most convenient and perfect comparison would actually be the Velma animated series. Originally, that wasn't meant to be Velma. It was an original show with its own universe. But naturally, Warner Bros. Didn't want to make it because the original series was either boring or it had nothing special about it. So, the show was then grafted onto the skeleton of Scooby-Doo, and what you ended up with is a show that feels nothing like Scooby-Doo but pushes the nonsense that they wanted. The People's Joker is Velma for DC Comics. Except it's kind of illegal that it exists since they're facing copyright infringement laws from Warner Bros. For using characters that they obviously don't own. But what we have here is a film about the Joker that has nothing to do with the characters that fans know. And the film only uses the Joker and his iconic look in order to coax people into watching it. And then once you're seated, because it's about something you know, in this case Batman, then the movie can push its propaganda or message onto you. It's the epitome of the agenda we're facing today. It's yet another piece of media designed to push narratives under the mask of something with an established fan base. Like Scott Pilgrim Takes Off, He-Man, Spider-Man 2, and more, these are just projects used to push agendas within a space where the creators don't have to be creative. Instead, they simply have certain names attached to them already, which gives these projects worldwide appeal, even if they don't end up being any good. And this finally brings me full circle to what Mobile Suit Gundam's creator Yoshiyuki said. I have thought in the past about how to avoid losing profits from those who have created such a clever system to keep users in a tight circle and prevent them from getting away with it. That tight circle is what we're all in right now, and it's what's pigeonholing and choking the creative lifeblood of multiple industries. These companies and the products they make have been designed to keep the consumer, you and me, within that man-made tight circle, and ensures that that clever system keeps us running around constantly consuming things with names and ideas that we love, while using those properties to inject ideas that have no business being there to begin with. Whether it's the woke mind virus coming for Japan in due time, David Jaffe getting roasted by people who have no business attacking the man for talking on his own creation, or a creator using the Batman IP to push their agenda, it's all the same. We're all in that tight circle. We're all running aimlessly, and the people who control these things are hoping as long as you're too busy rushing from things you know to others, you won't have the common sense to look up and see that it was all rigged from the start. And that, dear viewer, is what this is all really about. But as always, thank you for watching, subscribe, like, and share the video if you enjoyed it. I wanted to do a more think piece this time, so let me know what you think. Have a wonderful day, question everything, and I'll see you soon.